Good evening. Kia ora, haere mai, whānau. How are we this week?
Great.
Great. For those of our international viewers, haere mai, kia ora means hello, welcome in Māori, and whānau means family in Māori. And you'll hear more of that in the greetings as we get along. So this week, our subject is parallel universes and alternate dimensions. Massive subject. But before we get started, we've got some news. We have paranormal news. So I'm going to hand it over to Barbara, and she's going to lead with the paranormal news for this evening.
Okay, folks, good evening and hold on to your hats. Paranormal news this week is that Dan Rivera has passed away recently on the 13th of July in his Gettysburg hotel. The 54-year-old Rivera was actually on the Devil's Run tour with a supposedly possessed Annabelle doll. The doll had been held at the now closed Warren Occult Museum in Connecticut, but had recently been taken on a tour around the US with Dan and other staff members accompanying it. Dan had been with his colleagues for the day, and then he said he was feeling unwell and headed off to his room to have a lie down, and then was later, the next morning, was found dead. Dan was actually the senior lead paranormal investigator of the New England Society of Psychic Research, otherwise known as NESPRA, and he was also a US Army veteran. He also served as a consulting producer on the Netflix show 28 Days Haunted, which some of you may know. He was considered to be an expert in the rites and rituals of Santeria, which is the rituals are often
Santeria.
Sorry.
Santeria.
Sorry, I read that wrong. Santeria. And the rituals that they use often blend the Roman Catholic practices with many practitioners identifying with both religions. All right. Over his time with his paranormal team, Dan helped countless people out of dark times and is said to have brought comfort and a sense of safety to those who need it. Now, there has been a lot of speculation from both fans and paranormal enthusiasts as to whether the doll somehow played a role in Dan's death. And what do you know? The police have stated that nothing unusual or suspicious was observed at the scene. Additionally, on July the 16th, the Pennsylvania State Police report has listed the nature of Dan's death as natural. So I think we should just leave it there. Dan is actually survived by his 4 children, who, of course, are devastated by their loss. His son David has actually started a GoFundMe page to go towards paying for his funeral and the memorial expenses for his father and to support the family in their time of need. And we at Paranormal Pals would just like to say how sorry we are to hear about Dan's passing. From all accounts, he was a great guy. It's one of those unfortunate things and a very unfortunate coincidence that it happened while he was on tour with Annabelle.
So blessings to his family, and let's not speculate on any of the rubbish surrounding the doll.
Totally. And that is news this week.
Fantastic.
It surely.
In other news this week, Steve Huff is actually trying to contact Ozzy Osbourne. And that's all I've got to say about that.
Sorry, folks.
I hope that gets my point across really loud and clear. But that's all I've got to say about that.
Steve Huff is very into communicating with often recently passed celebrities. and apparently has some some success. Personally, I'm not sure just how much of it is real, but who knows?
And that is the paranormal news this evening. And on to our subject, paranormal universes and alternate dimensions. Do you think they exist? Let us know your comments. Let us know your thoughts in the comments section. But before you do, let's have a chat about that. So I guess when we're talking about, I'm going to lead in and say, I guess that when we're talking about paranormal dimensions and alternate universes, we're talking about an absolute melting pot here. So we're talking about anything from beings coming through vortexes or portals to time slips,
Time travelers.
um, time travelers. Yeah, absolutely. Tash, absolutely. Um, gosh, my mind's gone
Aliens,
blank. Aliens coming through
aliens,
the whole 9 yards. The whole nine
They
yards.
they
It's
call
shadow
it
figures.
yeah they call it a multiverse.
yeah, absolutely. The multiverse theory. Um, there are so many things that surround the subject. It's ridiculous. It's actually a massive subject that we're not going to get through in 40 minutes or an hour in an hour's podcast, but we can touch on and we can discuss various aspects of it. I think the first thing we should discuss is when we're talking about parallel universes and, excuse me, alternate dimensions, we're even talking about the astral realm, which is a metaphysical concept which actually has a basis in paranormal investigating. So there's so many different veins to the subject, I guess you could say, right? It's got like tentacles, in fact, and it stretches really, really widely. So let's talk about even the fairy world. And for those who don't think the fairy world exists, you'd be very wrong. Um, all these different worlds are supposedly layered upon layered upon layered upon layered upon our own. So if you look at it, it's like, I don't know, we're here, they're there, they're there, they're there, they're there, they're there, they're there, they're all around us. We're not talking about a disengaged world in another universe 20,000 million light years away. These worlds are apparently imposed upon top and at the side and underneath our very own world.
How I the way I like to explain it is that imagine like you're sitting wherever you're sitting at the moment, and you can only see our 3D world, okay? But imagine that the multiverse or the different dimensions, as some people refer to them, or part of it, um, imagine they're like radio waves, and they're sitting here. We'd look around, we can't see radio waves, but we know that we're completely surrounded by an infinite number of them. Just because we can't see them doesn't mean that they're not there. And now nobody knows for certain because, of course, this is unproven, and we're not physicists. Well, I'm not. The other two might be, but hey, I'm talking now anyway. So, and so we're not physicists. But the thing is that these universes, dimensions, they are around us, and some of them are huge, and others are tiny. So Just because we can't see them and we don't understand them and we don't understand how they work does not mean that they don't exist.
I like to also.
I can talk to the fact that if you've ever heard of the missing 411, often people go missing in the forest or the bush, and there have been recounts where people have actually come back and not gone missing, where they've been sitting there and they've been surrounded by people walking the tracks or around them, and they'll call out to them and they won't interact with them. So maybe, obviously, what Barbara's saying has some weight, because if it's true for our universe, it's probably true for others.
I like to think of it as, imagine yourself sitting in your house and you're seeing the four walls, but outside of your house, there's another world that you're not currently interacting with at that point in time. You're interacting with the world that you have that's right in front of you, which is your house. Within your house, within the four walls of your house. But outside, guess what? There's a whole other world. And then if you go, I don't know, 5 miles down the road, there's a whole other world that you're not interacting with at that point of time either. So for me, I would be thinking, I'm sitting in my house in Te Kowhai. I'm in my four walls. Outside of my four walls, I've got heaps of paddocks and heaps of wildlife, but I'm not interacting with that wildlife in those paddocks at this particular point in time. Beyond those wildlife in the paddocks, there's the village, but I'm not interacting with the village at that particular point in time. Beyond that village, there's Hamilton, but I'm not interacting with Hamilton at that particular point in time. It's no different when we're talking about...
So the converse would be true. So you're originally sitting in your house and you have the four walls, and then when you go frolicking down the road, then essentially there could be a multiverse or some sort of time slip or whatever in the house, but because you're not there, you're not interacting with it, you can't see it. And then only in certain occasions people get stuff like, I don't know, deja vu or time travelers, or, you know, as I said about the missing 411, where do those people go?
So this is not a new thing. Don't think for 1 second that this is a 20th century thing, because it's not. This has been happening for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, right back to the Bible, in fact. Mesopotamia, even in various scriptures, it's actually been noted about this sort of thing. If you go right back to 1600s and 1700s, there's even documentation about people walking into other worlds, such as the fairy world, spending time within that world where only 5 or 10 minutes has elapsed to them, and then walking out of that world and going back into their own, and 40 or 50 years has bypassed them. So we're talking about this, I don't know, this segue into other dimensions, other worlds. We're not talking about a planet millions of light years away. These worlds are imposed upon our own world, and it's literally like a parting of the veil, if you like. That's another way that it's been described to me in the metaphysical world. The Summerlands, where we go to die, is just beyond the veil. And at certain times of the year, we can part the veil and we can see through the veil. So this is no different than that aspect.
I have an example from the early 1900s where two school teachers, they went to Versailles, and their name was Charlotte Ann Mobley and Eleanor Jourdain. They claimed to experience a time slip, and they were walking through the gardens of Versailles, and they said they suddenly found themselves transported to the 1700s, seeing people in period clothing and eerie stillness, and even spotting Marie Antoinette sketching their Petit Trion. They did publish a book on it, And they did make a comment like, oh, look, people put costumes on, and they actually interacted with people. And the people in period clothes were like, what costumes?
You're weird.
Yeah. But imagine like us dressed today going to the 1900s in France.
Yeah, exactly.
I also have another example about that with regards to a time slip, and that's Bold Street in Liverpool in the UK. It is absolutely renowned for the urban legend of time slips in that particular street. Various people have reported experiencing brief moments where they have seen they've been walking along, and their husband, one example was they were walking along and the wife and the husband split up. They went their own ways. The wife wanted to go into one shop and the husband said, oh, okay, I'm going to go into another. Not completely unheard of, right? Normally the husband says, I'm going to the pub, and the wife goes out dress shopping. And when they did that, the husband actually experienced a shift in the street where the cars changed and became old-fashioned. The shops changed and became old-fashioned. He actually spoke to people in 1940s dress who did not react to him being in modern dress, funny enough. And he walked into a shop that was an old-fashioned candy shop. And made notice of that he'd never seen that shop before in that street, and he'd spent a lot of time in that street, and then stepped out, and then all of a sudden everything reverted back to normal. So a lot of these things can be accompanied by a buzzing in the ears and a slight shift in the consciousness to the point where the individual feels disorientated at the same time that they're hearing a buzzing, and then the scene changes in front of them, and they have a completely different scene that they're a completely different aspect and a completely different scene that they're looking at. When we're talking about time slips, we have to also realize that falls into this category of parallel universes and alternate dimensions, because we're not actually sure what this is. But not only does it mean that we go backwards, it also there has been quite a few cases of people going forwards as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about teleporting almost between different parallel or whatever universes. So it might not be just parallel. It might be universes like far, 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 far away, like that mimic our time. Like I play a video game called Fallout, and it's set in the future, but everything is all like 1950s because they didn't have transistors. So it's like a mirror of our 1950s or 1960s because they didn't have the technology to evolve further in that universe. So, there's, multiverse theories, like an infinite number of almost exact places around the, in our universe. And they're all existing at the same time, and sometimes they interconnect. And
I mean, I guess the subject that we're talking about two different aspects. We're talking about parallel universes, which is a little bit different to alternate dimensions.
Yeah, but isn't the same thing? Like your example basically said that this person was on a street and it morphed back to the olden days with old cars and old shops. However, how do you know that was back in time versus another universe running in parallel that is 1950s, 1940s?
That's the point. We're talking about parallel universes.
Yeah.
Alternate dimensions are a little bit different in respect of, with regards to alternate dimensions, normally alternate beings come through alternate dimensions. So the general consensus is that alternate dimensions include things like the astral realm, the fairy realm, the other world. What else? Even shadow people have been. This is a belief. Shadow people come from alternate dimensions, not so much a parallel universe. Although doppelgangers could come from a parallel universe, and that is a thought with regards to doppelgangers.
Or
Do
could they come from
doppelgangers
an
come from a parallel
alternative
universe?
one as well? Because how, everyone is talking about the creation theory. What if that is wrong? What if we were from an alternative universe and somehow transported here through a glitch, and then not just
Normally the two are very separated. Normally parallel universes are very different than alternate dimensions. As I said, alternate dimensions are things like you're looking at the fairy world, that sort of thing. You're looking at where they can use portals. I always say portholes for some reason. They can use portals or vortexes to come through to our dimension, but normally those dimensions are looked upon as alternate dimensions, i.e., the world of the fairy. Bigfoot is often said to reside in an alternate dimension and uses a portal. See, portal to get through to our dimension.
but who's to say that we can't pass through as well, or we didn't originate from there?
I'm not saying that. I'm not
So
saying
like
that.
alternate universes have their own laws of physics and stuff. So if we were transported from an alternate universe to the one we are in now, we've just adapted to the physics and whatever is whatever's on this plane.
Totally agree with you. But what I'm saying is alternate dimensions and paranormal universes are different in their categorization. Paranormal universes, we're talking about, how do I describe it? Alternate dimensions, I think I've described quite clearly. The 411 and things like that.
Yeah.
They say they go into alternate dimensions. Parallel universes are parallel to our world. So alternate dimensions are not. They don't carry the same beings. We're talking about the astral world. We're talking about the fairy realm. We're talking about the Summerlands, if you like.
But I mean, what about if you look at it from everyththing's all theory, right? So who doesn't say that we don't have parallel universes that are alternative universes, because we may have originated there and we have things going backwards and forwards.
But I think what we're doing is
parallel universes are potentially different time zones.
I think that's what we're doing. We're getting universes and dimensions mixed up here, and the two are very separate. So when we're talking about
are they? Because it's all theory.
Apparently, yes. Because when we're talking about parallel universes, we're talking about time travel, right? That falls into the parallel universe category, if you like. Possibly doppelgangers fall into the parallel universe to some degree. Not when we're talking about crisis apparitions, but when we're talking about actual doppelgangers. They fall into the parallel universe.
Respectfully disagree, because as much research as people have done, we're researching theories. So
we are researching theories.
You can have parallel universes. You can have parallel universes that are alternative universes.
No, we're talking about universes versus dimensions.
Well, I have a completely different take on dimensions, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, from the research I've done, physics kind of have sort of located, for want of a better word. And
physics do come into it for sure.
Yeah, about 10 or 11 different dimensions. And of course, we've got, the dimensions that we know about. This all started with the string theory. Okay,
Theory, yep.
and then we have, okay, and then we've got our dimensions. You've got a single dimension, basically just a dot.
Yep.
And then we have got the second dimension, which is kind of like, the numbers on a ruler. You can only go side
So
to
far.
side.
Yep.
Got our dimension, 3-dimensional we live in a 3-dimensional world. Now, after that, it gets a little bit stranger because, of course, Einstein actually talked about the 4th dimension, and he reckons that's time. And we also, live kind of in the 4th dimension, and then it starts getting really weird. And I've found lots and lots of information on these dimensions. I mean, basically, you've got the 5th and 6th dimension that's when you start getting into alternate realities, and the thought behind that is that this is where the world's branched off into when people made different choices. Like, say, if I had studied really hard, and I really wish I had now when I was at school, and I had become a physicist, I would have had this whole thing sorted by now. I could tell you everything that the paranormal was. Unfortunately, I didn't. So I'm a paranormal investigator, and this stuff makes my head hurt. But that's what they say, that is what physicists, not just me, this is what physicists actually tell us about these, the alternative dimensions.
And it's just a theory.
And
there's nothing to really support
it. Well, yeah, exactly. That is exactly right. Yeah.
So it could be right. It could be wrong.
Theories from physics. It's not like just something, Joe Bloggs down the road made up,
No.
It is physicists who have come up with these theories. And the 5th and 6th dimension is, as Natasha was saying earlier, that's where deja vu comes from, strange psychic experiences. That's where a lot of that comes from. The 7th dimension introduces an entirely different beginning, such as universes that never even started in the same way as ours. And it's like a cosmic reboot, and completely different laws of physics even in those particular dimensions.
Which I think is what Tracy was talking about. But my point is, it may not be a magical realm. We might have originally come from that and just been extracted, for lack of a better word, or transported. Exactly.
The 8th and 9th dimension cover every possible universe and every possible law of physics, apparently. And at that point, you're no longer dealing with alternative versions of Earth, but you're dealing with a totally alien reality. And then finally, the 10th dimension, which is whatever to the limit of your imagination. It includes all possible universes, all possible physical laws, all possible timelines, and all possible outcomes. And some people believe that this is where the divine or the source of consciousness lives, for want of a better word. So, yeah, I mean, it's just such a massive subject. With so many, as you can hear, by the three of us, with so many different thoughts on it and different theories on it, and different ways of thinking about it. And that's, as Tracy said earlier, it's just this massive subject.
It's a black hole. It literally is a black hole.
Yep.
No, they've proven that black holes actually spit out what they suck in. Now,
where do they spit them out?
Yes, they've actually seen it with light experiments. So they've sucked in and ripped apart a star, and then they've basically rejected
it back out again.
Yeah. So
I think, in all honesty, you need to look at the experience. And I mean, I know we're a race of beings that like to put things in a box so we can understand it, because let's face it, if we can't categorize it and we can't rationalize it, we can't understand it. So it has to be put in a box for our minds to be able to comprehend it to some degree, right? Because we are a limited being at the end of the day, or our understanding is limited.
Yeah, I'd say our understanding was limited. So
Yeah.
we don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So
When I think of
we're
what
in
we're
a box,
capable of,
not by choice, but trying to think outside the box without any proof.
it's very difficult to us.
You
Yeah.
know,
It's
And it's
incredibly
not just our understanding. Like, we're not wired to see
Yeah.
these things. We're not
Yeah.
wired to understand them. We don't have the equipment, you know, like say aliens, you know, from what we think we know, from what we may understand. They have, you know, they don't need to speak, you know. They can communicate with us even by not speaking.
telepathically. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's look at
but
that
we
for a
don't have
second,
that.
because originally aliens were thought to come from another world. Now, when people said another world, they were talking about outer space,
Space, yeah.
right? So now aliens are quite, there's another theory being put forward with regards to aliens, that they do come from other worlds, but they come through portals or vortexes into our world. So, which is not unlike the theory that is now being put forward with regards to Bigfoot and various
Wow.
other cryptids, that they come through portals into our world. And this is why no one's been able to capture one. One has seen one, and within an instant, it's completely disappeared in front of their eyes, because they're shifting from one world into the next.
So could it be time travel? Like, what I mean is, like,
exactly.
you know, you watch all the sci-fis and they've got light speed.
Could it indeed? Could it? Absolutely.
It's a form of travel. We haven't figured it out yet, but certain beings or certain versions of us can jump from one wherever, from somewhere, different timelines, or as Barbara says, you know, was describing having different timelines of your life.
Absolutely.
Infinite different choices.
Interestingly enough, I have read a report about, let's mention it, Skinwalker Ranch, where loads of stuff happens. You name it, tick it off the list, it's there. But I have heard a report, and I've read a report actually, of an individual who wasn't even on Skinwalker Ranch, but they were near Skinwalker Ranch on the road. And you know the heat shimmer that we see quite often in New Zealand, not as much as we'd like to nowadays, but when I was a kid, you used to see it a lot. You used to see the shimmer coming off the road, and everything in front of it was shimmering because of the heat coming off of the asphalt. This person saw that on a dirt road, and it was just a patch in the middle of nowhere shimmering. And outside of the shimmering, or should I say, in the shimmering, out of it came a being which looked like, to him, was a predator from the movie Predator. That's what it looked like to him. And it came out. Sorry?
I hope he didn't have a weapon at the time.
No, he didn't. He was absolutely gobsmacked. He saw the shimmering patch. It came out of the shimmering patch. It walked a few steps and stopped shimmering when it came out, so it wasn't shimmering. This patch in the middle of nowhere was. And then it turned around after a few steps and it went back into the shimmering patch, and then the shimmering patch disappeared. I've seen the shimmering patch myself, and I'm not talking about the asphalt of the road.
So have I.
I have seen the shimmering patch in the middle of like a garden in my own backyard. I had a massive gully, and I've seen it in the back of my gully. And I've seen people turn around and say to me, "Can you see that?" And I've just looked at them and gone, "Well, what are you seeing?" Knowing fair well what they're probably seeing. And they've gone, like the heat off the road? And I've gone, "Yeah." And they've gone, "I can see your ferns. It's all shimmering in your ferns." And I've gone, "Yeah, I've seen that too." And then I've had someone else later on in the night said, "Have you seen those things running up and down your fence line in your gully?" And I've gone, "What things?" Acting dumb. And they've said, those spindly things, they're like, I don't know, they're like creatures, like nature spirits or something. I don't know what you'd call them. And I'm like, "Yeah, I've seen them too." And then there's a shimmering that comes, and then they come, and then they go, and the shimmering's not there anymore. And I'm like, "Yep, I've seen it too. Don't ask me what it is. I don't know. I've
What if,
seen that with my own eyes."
what if it's like different portals, like on theories and like paranormal, and even what you call, I can't remember what it's called, but basically people would cover mirrors because they're worried that the dead would come through.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what if it wasn't the dead? Like, what if it's like, say, like almost like the shimmering thing? You can potentially sometimes put yourself through the mirror to go to the other side, or some alternate.
I don't see why you
universe.
can't do that. And do you know what? Me saying that sort of shit makes me sound crazy. I'm not crazy. I'm not the only one that saw that stuff. I
Mm.
never mentioned that stuff to anybody else that came to my property, and they saw it without any prompts from me.
I
They
don't think
saw stuff.
anyone's.
They saw
I
stuff
don't,
coming out of it that I never even saw myself.
I
And
don't
I
even
just that,
think. I don't think we've even called you crazy. Because again, it's an experience, and unfortunately, for these theories, we're all basing it on people's experience.
yeah, we are, and that's exactly right. We are. So all we've got to do is take these individual experiences, and that's why when people were saying to me, "I've seen this creature come out of this," and I'm sitting there going, "You nut job! I see the shimmering, but I've never seen any creatures coming out of it. You nut job!" Type of thing. Initially, until I saw the creatures myself, but I had
Mm.
multiple people say those things to me.
And
Without any
that's,
prompting from me at all.
and that's why, as paranormal investigators, we have to take people's anecdotal evidence
Into
and take it
consideration.
seriously.
Yep.
Because while the person may be in a dream world, there's too many of these stories which, when we as investigators get together and start comparing these stories, there are so many that actually match up. And people who don't
Yeah.
know each other, who've never met each other, who have no clue around the globe, this happens around the globe.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so that's why, people will say, oh, you talk to nut jobs and they're just mental, just, what are you even doing considering it? And sometimes it's not, sometimes you get enough of these stories that we can just stop and think, well, what the hell is actually going on?
Look, at the end
And
of the
that's
day, what
the investigator.
I totally agree with you, Barb. At the end of
Yeah.
the day, Barbara Aintash, and I don't think you'll disagree with me on that, on this, is that there are so many stories
Yeah.
where people have not spoken to each other, not read anything about this stuff, and had these experiences. People that are absolute non believers in anything as fantastical as this could possibly be, and yet
Mm.
they have this experience. Are you telling me they're fucking wrong?
Yeah.
Are you
Yeah.
telling me all these people are incorrect?
Yeah.
Are you
Yeah.
telling me all these people are making this up in their imagination? Because
And
I think that's
sometimes
a pretty far-reaching call.
and sometimes they think they're mental. Sometimes
Yeah.
they
Of course they do.
really think that there's something wrong with them. And
Yeah.
it can be quite comforting to people to say, hey, you're not the only one. I've heard the story before.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
seriously, if things are happening to you, if you see things, tell other people, because I tell you right now, the number of times I've told people things, they're like, oh, really? I've had that happen. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
it's not something that people normally talk about because you're kind of a bit worried about being judged. But
Yep.
I think the more that people actually talk about these things happening, the
The
more
more
it's going to
you'll find
become
that it happens.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think Tracy touched on a little bit, but about the veil and things. What if there's only one main universe and we can't
They're all
interact
separated by
for some
veil.
reason? For some reason, we can't interact with everything, and we're in a simulation, so we can only see what our simulated world can see. And sometimes there's like a glitch, so we're all in the same universe at the same time, but there's a glitch, and we can only see it when there's a glitch. So we're all living in the same universe, but in a simulation, and they're living in a simulation.
This is my point about spirits and ghosts. And I think we only see them when there's a glitch. And they talk about the glitch in the matrix. Okay, if you want to paraphrase it, let's talk about the glitch in the matrix. You know what? May not be that far off the point. If man can dream it, it can be. It's pretty.
So you're talking about manifestation. I have an odd story. Like, if you ever played GTA, and you are naughty and steal cars, because that's basically what it is. If you steal a car of a particular model and a particular color, you'll start seeing that in the game. And Kel and I often joke about that because we will see multiple cars that are exactly the same color and they're exactly the same model.
In real life.
Like it's in GTA. In real life, yeah. It's really weird. So,
isn't it
the same car
in that
case,
wow.
But is that a manifestation of some stores?
Saying about you make your own universe is not that far off the pack. Now, when we're talking about manifestation,
so we somehow subconsciously manifested that we're going to see, I don't know, a white Suzuki Vitara, and instead of seeing one, we see like 3 in a row.
When we're talking about manifesting things, that is the whole world of witchcraft and magic.
Isn't that the secret as well?
Manifesting things by your thought processes.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a little bit more than that, but that's the basics of it.
Yeah.
But
it's a lot more than that, but that's the basics of it.
We see glimpses. Most of us see glimpses all the time of weird things, whether it be deja vu or multiple same colored cars, or creatures, or the shimmering. Like
Jesus
these are all
Christ,
variants
I've seen
of
glimpses of that many things that I cannot explain. I just cannot even begin to write them down.
Yeah. So maybe it's like, I don't know, like a simulation. We're all running or either in the same plane or we're running with different parallel universes that connected, but we can only see.
But are all our realities the same?
Are they all? Are you saying I don't believe our realities are the same at all? I believe they are interconnected by the.
Do you guys really exist?
Well, yeah, I believe you do.
I will.
Your reality is very different than mine. When I first started in the
world of physics,
world,
I do. I can touch. I can feel that I'm existing. But
when I first started in the occult world, I was told something that I remember to this day, and that was how you see a rose is completely different than how I see a rose. So that's your reality, and your reality is very different than my reality. So what
Mm.
makes you think that there aren't other realities? And that was one of my
Or
first
can
teachers
we,
that asked me that question. And he was
and,
so right.
and can
He was
we
so right.
can we interchange realities for universes or dimensions or
I think that involves a bit more of a jump than your reality. I think that involves an actual physical movement into another realm entirely that is not the one that you're living in currently.
Or could it
Having
be
a
a
different
manifestation?
reality is different than living in another realm.
Could it be a manifestation so you can have multiple realities that you project? And
Well, people have
it
multiple
makes
faces that they
person.
project, so I have no doubt that you can have multiple realities that you can
we have
project.
multiple lives, like
Yeah.
a mother and
A wife, an
yeah,
employee,
exactly.
a friend.
Yeah.
I'm saying like
Absolutely.
more along the lines of it's not a different version of you, but you exist in parallel in different places. So you are the same person.
Yeah.
And different parts of you, depending on your experiences, split off.
Yep.
And
Well,
then
in
come
all
back.
I might
honesty,
have died in another reality. I might have died 5 years ago,
Yeah.
and I'm long gone. But in this reality, I'm still here.
you could
So that's
say,
one
to be
part
quite
of you.
honest,
So one
that
part of you,
you
one
and your
part of your
work
soul,
is a
for
different.
instance.
You and your workplace is a different version than you and your home place. So you're in effect talking about two different realities.
Yeah.
You're the same person, but you're showing two different faces. That's two different realities. You have a
Yeah.
workplace reality, you have a home life reality. And how you act with your family will be completely different than how you act with your friends. And how I act with my friends could be completely different than how I act with my paranormal colleagues. So they are, in effect, they're still my reality, but I'm living within different realities. I'm showing a different face. I'm being a different person based on the people that I'm interacting with. So that could be no different than stepping outside of your realm into another dimension completely.
Bit of a rabbit hole.
It's a
It is,
complete.
and
It's
I call it
now
a
we haven't even
wormhole.
started about wormholes yet.
No.
We haven't even started about wormholes yet.
Yeah.
Because what you were talking about, Tracy, is essentially masking. So you adapt to the environment that you're in, and then you readapt to be in other environments, whether it be friends, colleagues, people you don't know. Like you could be walking down the street and just
Completely. I mean,
today I was at the food show and some random guy was talking to me.
I was actually just going to turn
so.
around and say that I wouldn't turn around and call a coworker to fuck off, a paranormal colleague to fuck off, and someone
Oh,
in the
you do
street
it all
I
the
didn't know to
time.
fuck off. But I would.
That's
So I can't
fun.
use that analogy. Sorry.
Internally, you might.
No. Vocally, I would.
We know.
Sorry. Barbara knows. Yes, I would. Those realities make no. There's no.
We
There's
love you.
no. There's no borders there. No, absolutely not. But you see what I'm saying, though, eh? So how, as you're saying that we adapt to the different circumstances we're in, and it's more than adapting; it's showing a completely different aspect of ourselves depending on the people that we're surrounded with. So, in light of that, when we're talking about parallel universes and other dimensions, when we're talking about us, it can stand to reason that if we can do that within our own supposed realm, then the possibilities of other dimensions and universes being out there and other realms being out there is absolutely infinite and quite probable.
Yeah. I think I have talked about this before. If you listen to, I'm sorry, I've forgotten his name again. Ruddle. He was on our podcast recently.
Taylor Ruddle.
Taylor Ruddle. And
Yeah.
he did a very good one about someone who seems to think that they actually swap places with someone in a parallel dimension or dimension, because it seems like he'd had an operation, so he just about died or something, and then when he was brought back to life, he didn't have a scar that he should have had from an operation many years earlier, and he didn't have a there were a lot of actual physical differences in him, but he felt like he was the same person, and apparently he looked like he was the same person. But there were these little definite physical differences in him after this had happened. And the thought was that perhaps he had actually, swapped places with himself in a different dimension.
I've actually heard
Thought.
quite a few stories like that, Barb. I've read quite a few stories, not the same sort of scenario as that one that Taylor related, but of one that stands to mind really strongly is the guy that just woke up one morning and everything had changed. Everything had changed. His wife was eating things that she absolutely hated previously, and he's going, "What are you doing eating that?" And she's going, "What do you mean? I've always loved this." And he's like, "You've always hated that." And then he went to the TV and they had a completely different model of TV. And he's like, "When did we get this model of TV?" And she goes, "Honey, we've had this for 5 years." And he's like, nah. And he opened up a cupboard and everything was completely different in the cupboard. And he's like, "Since when have you moved all this stuff in here? Where's my this and where's my that?" And she goes, "It's in the garage where it's always been." And he's adamant for the last 5 years, everything has been where he thought it was. She has never ate this food. We have not had that TV. And all of a sudden, one morning, he woke up and everything had completely changed. And he said, "I don't know whose life I'm living, but it's not mine."
I've heard stories like that of people in a coma. So they've gone into a coma, and they've been in a coma for a significant amount of time, like a couple of weeks. But in those couple of weeks, like when you dream, time is condensed, like everything's really fast. So one of the ones I could think of is there was a guy, he went into coma, he had an injury, I can't remember how it happened. He was in a coma for a couple months in intensive care. And he was adamant when he woke up and was absolutely distraught because he got married, he had children, and he had this whole universe while he was in a coma. When he woke up and he asked about his wife and his children, the nurses and even his relatives and stuff were like, "What? No."
I have a friend, and she often pops in and watches these podcasts. Hi, Cal. And she told me the story of a friend of hers, and the friend's father just woke up one morning, and while he looked like the father, it wasn't him. His personality had completely changed. He knew nothing about the world around him. And while I know that there are, medical reasons, physical reasons why that sort of thing happens, apparently this was, very surprising. He just had no clue and no inkling, and it went, he never did, he didn't get an inkling, it didn't come back to him ever. As far as he was concerned, everything was just strange and foreign, and it wasn't his life at all.
It's
I think
it's is it called I can't remember, it's not imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome. No, it's not imposter
No, it's
syndrome.
called another
Kinda
thing
like
where
that.
people believe that the people in their lives are not actually
Who they say they are.
people. They are being replaced, for better word.
Do you know what? I just think that there is more to everything that we see. This thing, and I've heard a very famous TV paranormal investigator saying it, and that is, we're seasoned investigators. We're known to trust our eyes.
No.
If you're a seasoned investigator, you know not to trust your eyes at all in
Have
any
they
way,
been to a
shape, or
magic
form.
show?
Sorry?
Have they been to a magic show like David Blaine or?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
What's the other guy, Chris something?
it kind of blew me away when I heard that, and I just thought, okay, so you just actually proved to me that it doesn't matter how many programs you've been on and how many supposed paranormal groups you've been involved with, you're not a paranormal investigator, because the first rule is don't trust your eyes and don't trust your hearing either, because what you think you're hearing and what you think you're seeing may not necessarily be that. And I think that we can categorically state as humans that no matter what we think our reality is, it may not actually be what we think it is. And as for other dimensions and people going in and out and other things coming in and out and through and that sort of thing, I absolutely, my own personal belief is they exist, they are there, it happens, and it's there for those who have the eyes to see.
Can I just say, I mean, because we've talked about people who, we've talked about how beings from other dimensions or parallel universes or the multiverse, whatever you want, whatever, can come in to our reality. But I tell you what would be truly horrifying in my opinion would be these people who slip into these other realities. You hear stories of the family going for a walk one day, and the dog runs ahead, and one of the children run ahead to get the dog, and they're just never seen again.
I know.
And just never even any sign of them. And
look at the old Celtic stories from the 16
Mm.
and the 1700s that have been written down by the priests and the supposed sayers of the time that have written them down, where people have walked into the forest and they've never been seen again.
And
Or
they used to say the fairies took them. It used to be, the fairies. The fairies have taken them.
Yep.
I think, imagine these people, if they have actually somehow passed over into an alternative reality, never to return. And in these realities, like physics or gravity can be different, absolutely. In some of them, nothing is the same.
Well, if you want to look at...
What if the converse is true? Because there's lots of anecdotal things where people have gone missing. There's been massive search parties and then search specific areas, like for weeks and weeks and weeks. And then a couple of weeks later, after they've searched the same areas, they've found them dead, or
in a place where they've previously searched.
Which they've searched. So it's almost like they've been transported.
Is it like a cloaking device?
They've been transported somewhere, and then
have
they
been
can't survive the physics or something, and when they come back, they're like...
Have they been transported, or have they just been cloaked?
Yeah,
it's like
that's true. If you want to see them.
Yeah, if you want to look at the Māori legends and the Patuparehe and how they take people and how those people can be gone for weeks and they can see their families, but they can't interact with them and their families don't hear them. And then all of a sudden they're back. So there's been so many reports, and it's not just Patu Parehe, it's not, which is the New Zealand equivalent of the fairy folk of the British Isles. If for people who are outside of our realm of Aotearoa in New Zealand. But there's other stories about similar things, like the Celtic fairy folk of the British Isles, and they say that you don't eat. If the fairy take you, you don't eat and you don't drink because you'll stay within that realm. And there's people that have eaten supposedly and have drunk supposedly, but they've been gone for 60 years and they come out of that realm and they're looking at their kids that are now growing up and supposedly they're their father and they're exactly the same age. And there is report after report after report after report after report about this sort of thing. So are all these people making this shit up?
No, I don't think so.
Are they all gaga? If things happen again and again and again and again and again, you have to start looking at that thing that has happened and start saying to yourself, well, you know what? Maybe this person isn't fucking crazy. Maybe there is something to this.
It's like they say that people don't or can't disappear, but again, there's been many reported events, like the original one I talked about, the 411 missing people, where they've survived for weeks or days. They think it was days, but they've been missing for weeks and somehow stayed alive. And there's people around them and they can't interact with them. Like they call out to them for help. It doesn't matter where they walk. They can never get out of the forest.
Yep.
It's like you're almost stuck in a video game simulation type thing.
And that's where I reckon the veil comes in. When they talk about the veil between the worlds, I think there's veils between a number of worlds that are bang smack next to ours. Never mind talking about parallel universes. When we talk about universe, we think out there. And we think about up in the sky where the stars are. And we're not necessarily meaning that. We could be meaning like right here. Although to me, that's another dimension.
Right here. Like some apparently are as small as my fingernail, and yet that's a whole, that could be a whole dimension, like it's bizarre. It's so hard to get your head around.
It's very hard
to like the old program, I think it's like the 60s or 70s, like the Land of the Giants. So you have giant people and you have tiny people. But they're the same, people, but they're different sizes.
Excuse me, that's actually based, and that goes back a very, very long way away, and a very, very long time ago with regards to the British Isles, because the British Isles were a small race of people. Originally, the Britanni were a very, very small race of people. And then the giants came. And the giants were the people from Scandinavia and further afield. And then they intermingled with the little folk. And then when you look at the English, you've got very short people, but you've also got very tall people as well. Yeah. And that is the two supposedly that have intermingled. And this is a legend that goes back centuries.
I can just say it's not just the British Isles, it's everywhere where they've uncovered tiny little pygmy skeletons and they've found giant people like over 8 feet tall. Like,
I totally agree with you. But what I'm saying about the British Isles aspect the British Isles aspect is that it is common, not for those who look back to mythology. This is common knowledge that these races existed separately and then came together within the British Isles, and the people that you've got running around in the British Isles are now the offspring of these two very different races. So we're talking about, again, different realms. If you want to talk about different people meeting, you're talking about different realms meeting. You're talking about, when we talk about different realms, we're also talking about another realm entirely, which is the astral realm. And if you want to think about that realm, it's the realm of thought.
That's yeah. We've hardly
And we're
barely
talking, that's
on
another
that.
dimension. And believe you me, it's not a universe, but it is another dimension in itself.
Yeah.
It's a completely different dimension, but it is a dimension of thought. And as human beings, we don't actually understand the power of our thought. And the power of our thought can be immense, incredibly immense. We can change our own realm or our own little universe with the power of our thought. I mean, if you've ever set your mind to something and that you've tried and you can't and you can't and you can't, and then one day you go, damn it, I'm doing it. And then guess what? You do it. That's the power of thought. So we have the power of thought to change our own little realm, but we also have the power of thought that can actually permeate a completely different dimension and form that dimension as well.
Yeah.
Shall we leave it at that?
Oh my God.
Because we don't know. We could go on for hours about wormholes.
Honestly, we have hardly scratched the surface. Like
we haven't. But I've got a fucking headache. Absolutely got a headache, honestly. But yeah, this could go on for decades. We could, my favorite saying is, we could talk about this forever and disappear up our own asses. Is literally how this subject works. And you can get into it on a real scientific level and talk about quantum mechanics and talk about quantum physics and all the rest of it. But I'm not a physicist.
Oh my God. When I was doing a little bit of research for this, just actually looking at how the physicists see the dimensions and all that, I learned so much. It's such a fascinating subject. I'm never going to be the same again. Like, I'm not. I've just learned so many things this week just doing a bit of research onto this, because I knew dimensions existed and, multiverses and all that sort of thing. But when you actually start looking at it more closely and thinking about it, it's freaking amazing.
It is amazing. It really is.
And possibilities.
Just look into it, because it's absolutely incredible.
And you know what? Quantum stuff, I've always been fascinated in, and some aspects is really difficult to wrap your head around. But if you keep persevering with it, all of a sudden it will click and you will get what they're talking about, and then you move on to the next aspect.
The thing with the paranormal is that, like, everything's linked. Like, the more that you learn and the more that you, I'll say think, because no one ever really knows.
The less you do.
The less that you know. But then you just start to see so many patterns and patterns and differences, and you start to sort of put it all together, and it's so thought-provoking, and it is so interesting that it's incredible. Absolutely. It's mind-blowing.
Broaden the most closed-minded. It will broaden their horizons if they stick with it for long enough. It really, really will.
It's absolutely mind-blowing.
And that is the point, to stick with it and just look at it and delve and pick and pick and pick. And then you'll find some really incredible things. And it is, I mean, the world we live in is fantastic, but the worlds that live next to ours are even more fantastic.
Yeah.
And on that note, good night, guys.
No. Sorry, it's not good night, because we have to tell you about this weekend, guys.
Oh my God, I forgot.
Wow. Okay, Saturday night, tune in because Paranormal Pals are doing an investigation of this really amazing venue. We are so excited about it. Well, some of us are super excited. Some of us are so worried that we've got so much to do, but that's okay. We will all get there. I'm certain of it. Guess who's got so much to do? We will all get there, and it's going to be absolutely awesome. Please join us for a live feed at 9 o'clock on Saturday night, and also paranormal
Can I
research.
just say,
Yeah.
sorry, Barb, the live feed's not going to be on YouTube.
It's on Facebook.
Of course, it's going to be on Facebook. On where? Where do people go to find it?
If you go to Ghosts and the Paranormal in New Zealand or in NZ, you will find the event that has been created for you to jump on, and you can link onto that. Maybe, Tash, we can put the link in the down below, so people can join.
Oh, you mean the invite one?
Yes, the invite one.
And sorry, and my team, Paranormal Researchers New Zealand, we're going to be doing a live feed on the Sunday night at 8 o'clock. Just go to our Facebook page and the link will be up there from 8 o'clock on Sunday or just before 8 o'clock on Sunday.
Oh, we can put that link too. So
you could do an invite.
It won't go up though. We won't. We won't actually start it until anyway. That's
it doesn't
fine.
matter if you create an event, the link will be there, and we can put it down below.
All right, cool.
So that's cool. So come and join us, and you can't find out where we're going until
Island.
Yeah.
But we're super excited.
6 hours to get there.
So
some of us, anyway.
What we've got is effectively, we have got Quantum Foundation there, members of the Quantum Foundation there, members of Paranormal Researchers there, the lovely Tash from Paranormal Pals,
independent.
And we've got Central Hawke's Bay Paranormal Society joining us as well. So that's literally 3 different teams. But we're doing this primarily. We're doing this primarily as a Paranormal Pals podcast episode. So we're going to get a video up after the fact showing you various bits of the investigation. We'll put it on the channel here so you can watch, as well as the lives that we're going to hold on the Saturday night and the Sunday night. And it's going to be great. We love collaborating, Bubs?
It is. It's just like, it's the way to go. So many different ideas, different teams, different ideas, different people. It is going to be awesome.
So come join us. Come join us on our paranormal party.
Please do. We're excited to see you.
Tash is calling it our paranormal party.
Yeah.
So this place hasn't been investigated for over 10 years, and there's only been 2 teams in previously. So come and see where we are. And this is involving us jumping in cars and driving 5 hours plus.
7 for me.
Road trip.
The roadie. We like the roadie.
We do, and it's going to be so freaking cool.
And then we'll have another exciting announcement coming up after that exciting announcement.
Yeah.
So stay tuned.
Yeah, we will. We've got some awesome investigations lined up.
So we'll see you Saturday night, and we'll see you Sunday night.
And stay warm, okay?
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
Bye.